Chapter 11. Chance Meetings. October 21st, 2007, 8:52 a.m.
This is absolutely glorious,
Sue thought as she took in the enchanting scenery. Her car cruised along the peaceful stretch of country roads that unfurled in their winding way to the new house. Throughout the area, fall was in all of its glory. Brilliant reds, oranges, and yellows were spattered throughout the treetops. Misty bands were rolled like cotton batting against the shadows of the passing woods. Lonely old tractors ranged the dark loam of open fields, and livestock clipped purple alfalfa along barbed wire fences. Without question, this day cut to the very essence of New England's seasonal charm. Sue's senses were touched by the grace and purity of the scene. As she turned down the dirt lane toward her property, a smile played upon her pretty face. This was going to be the start of noteworthy improvements around the house. A wide selection of gardening tools and trash bags littered the back seat. A lawnmower sat neatly folded in the trunk. The following few days would be spent landscaping the yard before the leaves fell from the trees. Loving this type of work, she could hardly wait to get dirt under her fingernails, fatigue in her body, and soreness in her joints and muscles. Several projects were slated to unfold, including the creation of a large rock garden and an interesting lawn ornament. The grass and bushes, which wore the shabbiness of neglect, would be manicured into a neat display of straight lines and smooth curves. Unruly trees would be cut back and pruned with a deft precision. The time-consuming work, such as digging out dead or unsightly shrubs, would be spared until the spring, when her schedule would be more agreeable to such things. For now, the mission was to beat the great avalanche of colorful leaves which was steadily approaching. Since it was Sunday and none of the usual traffic was expected, Sue pulled the car even with the blue wasteman in the driveway.
Looks like this place could use a makeover,
she exclaimed. With a strained grunt, she removed the lawnmower from the trunk and placed it on the ground. This procedure was old hat, from years of carting Ryan to his boyhood lawn jobs. She brought the handle to its upright position and spun the butterfly knobs until they were tight. A thin veil of sweat glistened on her forehead as she turned to face the yard.
"Just wait till I'm through with you,"
she called out. The land sloped away from the house in all directions to the surrounding tree line. While there was plenty of mowing to be done on the sides in front of the house, Sue decided to tackle the hardest part first. The backyard, a rectangular clearing cut out of the dense growth of trees and thicket, spanned about 100 feet across by 75 feet deep. Every blade of grass had gone to seed and resembled a Kansas wheat field, rolling in waves with each passing breeze.
"I ought to invite one of these farmers to graze his cows back here,"
she mused.
"This would fatten them up good."
In a subliminal blur, a fleeting vision of having her own farm animal flashed through her mind's eye. She leaned over to tuck her jeans into her tall work boots in preparation of combing the yard for hidden debris. Her feet traipsed forward, tentatively at first, but soon found their surety under a strengthening bravery. She made numerous sweeping passes of the backyard before depositing her finds into the edge of the woods. The only remaining enemy for her trustworthy lawnmower was the tall grass itself. There was no disputing that this would be its most ambitious project to date. The Craftsman was nearing the end of its 11th year and looked to be on its way out, but Sue had never seen anything like it. By any logical reasoning, this machine should have been laid to rest years before, but the die-hard engine didn't know the meaning of quit. Sue's treatment of the lawnmower had been suspect at best. A single oil change, no blade sharpenings, and no spark plug replacements. Yet somehow, it still cut grass like the day it had been put into service. This particular job was a lot to ask of her old friend, but Sue was sure it would be up to the challenge. She rolled it over to a matted area of grass near the back stairs and gave the primer the usual 3 pushes. With a hard rip of the cord and a lot of spitting and sputtering, the engine roared to life. The yard's haggard appearance was about to undergo a dramatic conversion. Sue paused for a moment to determine the most efficient course. Her best bet was to go counterclockwise from the rear right corner, working her way across the back, down the side, across the front, and up the other side. As soon as her mind gave the go-ahead, she yelled,
"If there are any critters out there, run for your lives!"
The mower lurched forward under the force of her push and began the battle of machine versus nature. Each step was painstakingly slow, but eventually the sea of waving grass began to ebb. Sue intentionally avoided the area around the large tree stump in the rear left corner of the yard, for this would be the future site of her rock garden. With several passes remaining, her concentration was broken by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. An enormous orange and white tiger cat came strutting out of the open trail in the backwoods. When Sue released the safety bar on the lawnmower, a surprising silence replaced the drone of the engine.
"Here, kitty kitty,"
she called, snapping her fingers in hopes that it would come closer. Without hesitation, the cat sauntered right over and pushed its head hard against her reaching hand.
"What's your name?"
The cat wiggled its tail into a crook while rubbing across her ankle.
I guess I'll call you Tom, for Tomcat.
A squawk and purr seemed to let her know that the name would suffice.
Do you live on one of the farms around?
In a powerful shot, he tore across the freshly cut grass after an unfortunate little field mouse. Just like that, the preying predator disappeared into the shadows of the trees.
It was nice meeting you, Tom,
She shouted with a chuckle.
Don't be a stranger.
She returned to the mower and shattered the quiet calm with a pull of the cord.
Here we go again.
Another 15 minutes of back and forth brought her clear across the backyard. She took a moment to top her buddy's tank with gasoline before continuing over the rest of the lawn. Her pattern of cuts ended with a final pass along the length of the driveway. It had been a difficult battle, but there was no question the machine emerged the victor.
You never cease to amaze me,
Sue said to the pinging mower.
I don't know about you, but I'm beat. Time for lunch.
As she climbed the stairs to the second floor, several groans escaped her lips. Her muscles were feeling the effects of the hard work.
Come on, Body, hang in there,
She muttered on her way into the kitchen. With a splash of some cold, refreshing water on her face and neck, she gazed at the backyard out the double windows over the sink. The elevated view allowed her to see a vast improvement over what had come to be the accustomed landscape.
Wow, is that nice?
As much as she was tempted to drink this in for hours on end, she knew she had to keep moving if she were going to finish her checklist. So grabbing a sleeve of saltines and a Pepsi, she headed back outside for lunch. The next undertaking of her day was to rake the flattened lines of hay which covered the entire expanse. She used the same game plan to rake as she had used to cut the grass. Large piles began to develop across the backyard, down the side, across the front, and finally up the other side. Instead of its original disheveled appearance, the lawn now had the uniform look of a crew cut.
I told you, you'd look great when I was through with you.
She walked over to the lawnmower and found that it was cool enough to put away.
The cellar should be an okay spot for this,
She muttered while rolling toward the rear of the house. After some awkward jimmying, the system for getting the mower down the bulkhead was achieved. She parked it under the open back stairs and paced over to the middle of the room to initiate the next phase. The aluminum washtub was resting upside down on several spread newspapers. A dozen holes had been drilled through the bottom, and a glossy black finish shone from its surface. Using the out-of-place toilet as a seat, Sue determined that the shiny coat had finally set. The tub's days on the third floor functioning as a leak catcher were now officially over. She swung the tub atop her head like a foolishly oversized hat, then proceeded up and out to the front yard, placing the prop beside the black wrought iron lamppost. Pleased with the effect, Sue started backpedaling toward the driveway. Her imagination could almost see the container brimming with pastel-colored petunias and deep green vinca. She continued to the car for a new group of tools including an edger, a shovel, a pitchfork, and gloves. Fatigue was becoming an issue, but Sue had a schedule to uphold. Her benchmark for the day would be met, even if it meant working into the dark. She retrieved the wheelbarrow that was leaning against the back porch, filled it with the tools, and went out to the far corner of the yard. The following 2 hours were dedicated to edging, digging, removing large chunks of sod, and grading. As a result of the effort, a smoothly contoured base developed around the old tree stump. The bed would have to be filled in and mounded with several wheelbarrows of dirt. Another load would be needed for the tub on the front lawn, but that would be saved for last. With the wheelbarrow and shovel in hand, Sue started down the back trail in search of a good place to dig. As she got further along, she began to realize what a trove this little pathway was. The surrounding woods were extremely thick with briars and tight gatherings of early-stage tree growth. Large evergreens and deciduous trees overhung the trail to form an unbroken canopy of dancing colors. On either side, the forest floor was a brown blanket of decaying needles and leaves. Sue struggled to keep the wheelbarrow going forward in a straight line, largely because the trail seemed to have been formed by years of travel. 2 deep grooves ran from the trail's inception to the gated stone boundary wall and continued to some unforeseen point well into the next property. Sue stooped momentarily to inspect a rut with her hand.
It's almost as if this used to be a wagon or a cart path. What if this was the very beginning of the Conestoga Trail?
She started laughing at the absurd thought.
Maybe I'll call you Conestoga Way.
She stood up and looked back toward the house. It was as if looking through a portal of shimmering color. The view rolled down the grooved trail to a pristinely striped lawn of alternating greenish yellows and ended with a frame shot of the back of the house.
I've got to get a picture of this.
Her attention was refocused on the chore at hand when the balancing shovel fell from the rim of the wheelbarrow and clunked on the ground. A glance through her watch told her that it was nearly 4:30. Picking up the shovel, she found a nice spot just into the woods and went to work filling the wheelbarrow with a rich, loamy earth. By 5:30, when the last of the daylight was dipping below the horizon, Sue dumped her final load of dirt into the tub near the front light pole and massaged the back of her neck. She had successfully reached the goal for the day. A relaxing dinner, a warm bath, and a dose of muscle cream would be the last 3 self-indulgences relished before her weary head hit the pillow for the night.